Imagine a situation in which one gimmick has failed and survival remains possible. Now imagine surviving 2, then 3. The chance is never given to most wrestlers. A poor performance is sufficient to bring about the end of a career before it has even begun, and a single unsuccessful effort can turn a future superstar into someone who is now forgotten by most of his fans. The professional wrestling world has always been tough in that if you fail to win over the audience, another person is already waiting to take your place. No one else had a better understanding of reality than Charles Wright before he attained the name of the Godfather. Before the arenas blew up the moment his music began to play, before the fans shouted out each word of his entrance, he was watching his career vanish. They made him a voodoo priest. They turned him into a cold-blooded fighter. They then put him into one of the most controversial factions of the 1990s. The company promised that this would finally be the gimmick that worked. A mistake occurred every time. Most of the wrestlers would have disappeared. Most of them would have been released. Most of them would have ended up with a name that was forgotten and buried in the history of wrestling. Charles Wright refused. He kept adapting. He kept surviving. And then, when nobody was expecting it, a character who was one of the most unforgettable of the Attitude Era was, in fact, produced by WWE by accident. A character so outrageous, so controversial. That's absolutely excessive. Even many decades later, fans still remember the music, the hat, the cane, and that unforgettable walk to the ring. The real story is this: The Godfather wasn't his most successful work. The only way to survive long enough to become the Godfather was when you realize all the suffering Charles Wright endured before he discovered that one ideal character. You will never see his career the same way again. Before he had become the Godfather to millions of wrestling fans, Charles Wright was merely another athlete in one of the most difficult industries in which to pursue a dream. Professional wrestling looked glamorous on television. Bright lights, packed arenas, championship belts, individuals yelling for their favorite stars. But behind the curtain was brutal. The performers all managed to get time on television. Every match was an audition. As a result of each mistake, you could end up losing your job. The company did not plan on giving people an infinite number of opportunities. It wanted results immediately. There was something that the promoters were not able to teach, which belonged to Charles Wright: presence. People noticed him as soon as he walked into a room. He stood tall. He looked intimidating. He was confident. Television cameras loved him. They believed that they had found a special individual. There was one problem. Nobody knew what kind of wrestler Charles Wright was going to become. And in wrestling, that is typically the gap between becoming a superstar and then ending up unemployed. The 1990s started with several remarkable characters. It isn't the sort of wrestling that today's wrestling fans are familiar with. It was a period in which the garbage men were seen as heroes. Those who had handled dead bodies lived again. Tax collectors terrified audiences. It was regarded as completely normal to have supernatural powers. WWE believed when Charles Wright first applied for a tryout with WWE, it didn't succeed. Papa Shango was gone. The smoke, the skull, the face paint, the supernatural curses, the various elements that WWE had intended to frighten the audiences had broken down due to confusing storytelling and changing fan expectations. Despite having invested a large amount of money in the character and having included him in the same storyline as Hulk Hogan, one of the major storylines at the time, the company was unable to create wrestling's next unstoppable monster. And the gimmick is now remembered for all the wrong reasons. It would have been the end for most of the wrestlers. WWE has never been known for its patience being unlimited. Creation generally goes on when a character fails. The next rookie arrives. The highest priority one is given the attention. The experiment that had failed just disappears. Charles Wright somehow survived. This proves that the people working behind the scenes held him in high regard. Even though fans considered Papa Shango a bad gimmick, WWE executives still thought there was something valuable hidden beneath the surface. They saw size, presence, athleticism. Most importantly, they saw someone willing to alter himself without complaint. It gave him another chance. This time, magic would have no part in it. No curses, voodoo, supernatural powers. Instead, WWE took it all away and recreated Charles Wright from the very beginning. His new identity, the Supreme Fighting Machine. The changes were even more striking. The mysterious sorcerer had vanished. Standing in that position was a fighter who was cold and calculated and could break bones with his bare hands. The presentation was simple. No theatrical spells, smoke, and mirrors, just intimidation. The WWE wanted the fans to believe that Kama wasn't coming to entertain them. He intended to injure people. It was just the opposite of Papa Shango. For a while, it worked. The fans accepted the new approach since it appeared believable. Charles Wright looked dangerous. He seemed as though it made no difference to him if the fans cheered or booed, but belief in it was no longer sufficient. The changes in professional wrestling were happening at a speed that no one had expected. The earlier formula was nearing its end, and if WWE did not change, someone else would. In the United States, WWE was becoming a genuine threat. The Monday Night War began. Each Monday night, fans were offered a choice: WWF or WWE. One remote control, one decision, millions of viewers. The winner was the one who produced the most exciting television program. As a result of the competition, both companies had to operate in survival mode. Safety was no longer sufficient. To be predictable meant inviting a death sentence. Each week needed to seem more significant, louder, more shocking, controversial. The wrestling industry was more than just evolving. It was becoming a battlefield. Charles Wright found himself right in the middle of it. His greatest opportunity arose when he joined one of the factions most frequently discussed during the decade. The Nation of Domination. It was not just another group of villains. It was controversial, aggressive, intense. What made the Nation special was that it was not afraid to challenge its audiences in a way that few wrestling stables had done before. D'Lo Brown, and then one of wrestling's future megastars, The Rock, stood next to Farouk and, as a result, increased Wright's profile. Every promo felt important, every appearance mattered. It gave him credibility. It also provided him with something extremely valuable. One does not live longer than other people merely because they are showy. They can survive because they make people react. The louder the reaction, the greater your value is. Charles Wright was at last beginning to understand that lesson. Then everything changed. Not just as a reference for Charles Wright, for the entire wrestling industry, the Attitude Era exploded. The lively cartoon world of the early 1990s was suddenly brought to an end. The fans' desire for perfect heroes had now disappeared. They wanted anti-heroes. Stone Cold Steve Austin was attacking his own boss. Generation X would make fun of any authority that presented an opportunity. The Rock insulted entire cities by using a microphone. Every episode felt unpredictable. Every week, the boundaries were a little bit more extensively reached. The WWE knew that if they caused controversy, it would lead to conversation. Conversation created ratings. The ratings enabled the company to continue operating. Creative was no longer seeking safe characters. They were looking for individuals who could not be overlooked. Charles Wright was about to become one of them. Not even WWE itself could have predicted how extreme the next phase of his transformation would be. The shift from Kama to the Godfather involved more than just a change of costume. It was career-defining. One day he was a fierce fighter. The next, he passed through the curtain wearing flashy suits, a wide-brimmed hat, carrying a polished cane. Surrounded by women, the audience stayed silent for a moment. Then they erupted. As they had never seen anything like this. It was outrageous, ridiculous, completely over the top, exactly the kind of thing that was desired in the Attitude Era. The film The Godfather was not aiming to seem realistic. He did not need to be. Nothing could surpass him. Before the match had actually begun, his arrival became a major event. The music hit. Fans immediately stood up. They knew that it was going to occur. The arena at once became a large party. It is extremely uncommon for a professional wrestler to struggle to achieve that kind of immediate recognition. It can take some wrestlers 20 years to establish that connection. Charles Wright found it almost overnight. What made The Godfather different from many of the other gimmicks of the Attitude Era was the fact that Charles Wright committed completely. There was no hesitation, embarrassment. Attempt was made to make the character seem realistic. He took all the ridiculous details on board, smiled, danced, maintained contact with the crowd. The fans felt that they were taking part in the program. That is why the gimmick was successful. It was nothing less than the clothing, or the entrance, or the catchphrases. It was confidence. Charles Wright believed that there was a Godfather, and because he believed, the audience believed too. After years of continual efforts to alter itself, WWE had finally stopped trying to get Charles Wright to fit into some other person's concept. Instead, they came upon the version of him that appeared completely natural. Ironically, the most outlandish stunt of his entire career was in fact the most genuine. The rewards arrived promptly. The Godfather was not merely securing television time anymore. At the height of wrestling's popularity, he had become one of the most well-known figures. Soon, the popularity would earn him the championship gold. On the other hand, success created an entirely new problem. The quality that had established Charles Wright as well-known would soon meet with a changing world. And once more he would have to reinvent himself if he was to survive.